to another episode of the Keep Making Podcast. Today on the podcast, we have Aaron Ludwig. Super excited to have you featured on this podcast.
Well, first of all, Caden, thanks for having me on. It means a lot. It means a lot that you and Alumilite would think me worthy to be on here.
Oh, of course. Your work is beautiful. I'd really like to start at the beginning for you. I know that you're a wood turner. We're featuring on our next Maker Monday, which is going to be aired right today, whenever this video goes out there. How did you get into wood turning? What started this journey for you? Did you see someone online? Was there someone in your community? I'd like to know, like, the very first time you're like, you know what? I think I want to get into that. Let's start there, and then we'll go from there.
This is not a full-time gig for me. I have a full-time job and life, and this is my little shop, which I'll give you a tour of in a minute, where I come to burn off some steam.
Awesome.
And honestly, where that came from is a few years ago, my wife sat me down and pretty much gave me an ultimatum. She said, hey, you got to find a place to put this stress. I work a fairly high-stress job, right? I'm in the sales world, and it's a commission-based job. So, I mean, it matters. You got to get out there and get it done, probably similar to what you do, right? And she said, hey, it can't be fly fishing. It can't be snowboarding, things I already love, because those take you away and you're gone, right? You got to find something where you can burn it off. And I've always loved woodworking, but man, to go out in the garage or your shop and build a giant cabinet, you know, or a big table, what are you going to do with it after that? I don't really want to start a business of that. So wood turning kind of became a natural spot, right, where you can make something smaller and have a lot more artistic creativity ability, or a license to make things. And frankly, I'm an engineer by trade. I graduated in mechanical engineering at BYU, Brigham Young University. So my mind works very linear, very square, and something about being able to make a circle in wood was just fascinating to me. And,
interesting.
I Googled it one day, and it turns out one of the largest suppliers of woodworking tools is like a mile away from where I work in Provo, Utah. And so I hopped in the car one day on a lunch break, drove down there, showed up and said, hey, I want to buy a lathe. And,
it was that quick? You literally Googled and they're like,
who is this guy? You just wander in here in a suit and tie, right, and want to buy a lathe. But and so they started showing me little desktop units, you know, you make pens and little things. I was like, no. I want to make a basin, right? I want to bathe a child in a bowl that I make. And so I bought a big Powermatic and haven't looked back. I had no idea what I was getting into, Caden. I'll just tell you right now. I had no idea. You know, chainsaws and bandsaws and, goodness sakes, drying bowls over here on my shelves for years before you can finish them. I didn't do a lot of homework. I thought I was going to buy a lathe, go home and make a bowl.
Right.
About a year later, I finally got there. But that was my true reason, right? It's things like bowls. I love that, right? Trying to make that shape, rolling pins, things of that nature. And then, it kind of just grew from there.
That's awesome. So you have the warp speed version. I mean, we definitely hear a lot of people of like, you know, I had no clue what I was doing, but it generally takes a little bit longer for someone to like buy a lathe or like really dive in head first. You went straight for the Powermatic. Yeah. You went straight for the tools, like literally just from Google and just like doing it right away. That might be a first for me, hearing from like outside in the wild, someone just like diving in that fast.
And there's no exaggeration there, man. This is me like on a Monday going wood turning. And by Friday, I've got, you know, a 500-pound thing in my garage I need to assemble. Right. And then I just jumped, I just slapped, you know, somebody called me and said, hey, I got a cottonwood down. I went and bought a chainsaw. I didn't own a chainsaw. I never harvested my own wood, right? I thought you got wood at Home Depot. And then I realized this is scary. Like this can kill you. Right. And
so it's no joke. Lathes are serious business. Yeah, they're very serious.
Yeah, they'll take your fingers off in a heartbeat, right? Or smack you in the face. But you know, I got really lucky. The social media community, I owe a lot to these people. So, you know, there's a few wood turners, specifically through Instagram. I met some people locally. Kevin Hicks with Big Ash Bowls took me under his wing. I literally found myself in his garage a few weeks later, and he gave me kind of an impromptu, this is how you hold the tool. Don't put your fingers here. spin it like this, and the lights just started turning on, right? Kind of
Oh
went, oh,
man,
okay.
that is so
So yeah,
awesome. So
it went
you did
quickly.
local guy, and then who
Yeah,
else? Like who else at the start, especially on Instagram? Because
yeah,
that's how, I mean, quite frankly, even when I started this job, which is a marketing job, and very much like about content creation and all that kind of thing, but there were wood turners on Instagram, were some of the very first people that I actually interacted with as on behalf of Alumilite. Everyone was so friendly and open and shared
yeah. It's
anything, any
unbelievable.
question I had. It was pretty awesome. So
Right.
who
And
were
I've
yours?
tried to carry that on too. I want to emphasize that with your listeners, people who listen to this, that the community is very helpful, right? And especially from guys like me, I'm not in this as a business. I do sell things. I have a little website and I cover my costs, but you're not competition to me. I'm going to tell you absolutely anything you ask. We're all here to learn together. But Kevin Hicks, by far, Big Ash Bowls is his handle on Instagram.
Okay.
Phenomenal individual. Alexander Design, great guy. I think he's in Pennsylvania. He's been an incredible inspiration to me. We actually started about the same time. You want to talk about turbo speed? That guy crushed me. He is
Really?
just, he's now full time. I've never seen such a prolific turner. He's got the energy of 10 of me, but good people really helped get through. And then frankly, the whole Alumilite addition to it is not very old for me. At the beginning of this whole COVID thing that we're going through together, I found myself with extra time.
Mm-hmm.
And, I use the term lightly and perhaps I shouldn't, but I'm pretty sure I'm ADD. I just cannot sit still. And so, I didn't have as much
As
to do
someone
with
that is
work.
ADD, I can relate, and I fully
Right. And I don't mean
sympathize.
to make light of the term. I don't
Yep.
officially have anything, but there's a good chance I do because, within 2 hours of not having any work to do, I was just stir crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole idea of wood hybrid resin things was really appealing to me. And I had never turned a spear. So that was
Okay.
the first. This all just happened, as of like March. And I really, just like you heard about my wood turning experience, I dived all in. I went all in. So
Mm-hmm.
now I do a lot of things. I guess you can't see them in your thing, but some of my
Oh yeah, we can see it.
newer creations there.
That's
Take,
awesome.
really funny shaped burls and mix those with resin. And that's been kind of a fun experiment, kind of like globe looking things.
Yep.
But the cool thing, this is all Alumilite clear slow mixed with the
Mm-hmm.
Alumilite powders that you all sell on your website. And there's a lot of depth. It's hard to
Yeah,
see there, but you're holding this in person. It's cool to look down in there and see
that's
all the
beautiful.
different things that come out. So it's been just a ton of fun. Started with your more traditional half and half
Mm-hmm.
deals,
Mm-hmm.
and of course the obligatory Star Wars ships, which
Good. You,
they
you
all
it's
sold.
got.
They're
Yep.
gone. You have to,
Yep.
right? You have. That's kind of a rite of passage. You have
I
to
think it
cast
is.
it.
I think it's an unofficial rite of passage, especially in the sphere realm. If you don't do an
Yeah.
X-wing, it's not. It didn't happen.
Well, and complete honesty here, I'm not a guy to go sit down and watch a movie. I had never seen the Star Wars trilogy, the originals, or any of them. So a buddy of mine at work was like, "Here, this is the ship you need," and I'm like, "Okay, that's it. We'll put that one in there." But he was good guidance. And then a little crazy. So that one that you're familiar with, that one actually
Yep.
won the Alumilite 10K challenge,
Yep.
giant dandelion, and that was a
That's
lot of
so
fun.
cool. That one is very cool. I really like that one. I remember seeing that, and I was like, this might be the first time I've seen anyone do that with a flower, and also it preserved so well. Like you can't see any air pockets or any of that kind of stuff. Like you did a really good job of making sure it's good to
Thank
go.
you. I'll admit I stole that idea before I take credit for that. Another local guy, his name's Kevin as well, but Lazy K Woodworking,
Okay.
phenomenal Instagram account. He did it first, so I'm not even going to pretend to take credit. But I'm thrilled with how that one turned out. And I'll be honest, several people have messaged me wanting to buy it, but I kind of like it.
I was gonna say, you're gonna keep that one. That's for your own
When
collection.
you put that much effort into something, it's often not worth selling.
Mm-hmm. 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 So you buy a lathe, you get into woodworking, wood turning more specifically. How long ago was this? When did this all officially start?
So woodworking, classic things like cabinetry style, cabinets and whatnot. That started for me 20 years ago.
Okay.
And just as a hobby, again. So paid my way through college, building decks for people.
Okay.
And happy to announce those are all still standing. But
Good.
still give me a little bit of heartburn because I was not official. I had no business licenses or anything, but I built several decks for people and cabinets, a few basement kitchens and such.
Okay.
But as I was saying before, you can only take that so far. If you're a garage woodworker, your wife can't pull her Suburban into the garage because it's full of table saws and sawdust. That's no fun. So
Right.
the actual wood turning only, maybe 3-4 years ago.
Okay, I was gonna say it doesn't seem like it's been that long, and you definitely have progressed fairly quickly for a hobbyist. So does that mean that your wife is kicking you out to the garage on a regular basis, or is this something you're just like, oh, you know what? I really love this.
So remember, I'm the guy who just did this really quickly. I'm not one to sit back. I go all the way, and
Okay.
I'll pick up my computer and give you a little tour. I'm no longer in my garage.
Okay.
So since that time, I've actually built a little dedicated, I don't even want to call it a wood shop because it's not very big, but I'm in my basement right now, and this is my little wood turning studio.
Okay.
But,
okay.
Would you like to see it?
You have an actual, yeah, I'd love to see it. So you got an actual studio. Yeah, let's get the tour.
Yeah.
I want to see the shelf where the wood's drying. What kind of wood you got on that shelf? Things that you're probably really excited to turn eventually. Oh, wow. You have a lot of bowls.
So I'll tell you what, we'll kind of exit my shop here. I'm kind of proud of this. We'll bring you all the way in. How about the grand tour?
I like that. That's gonna be great. This is the first computer tour that I think we've done on the podcast, so I'm very excited for this.
Hey, I'll be your first. So in my basement, right? We come down here and other woodworking things. I built that door. Okay. Right. You can see my kids can't play ping pong because it's Christmas time. And I've got bowl orders ready to go.
Yeah.
And then you come back here and enter, so you can see they're actually exterior glass doors, but they're inside my basement.
Okay. That's awesome.
I designed this thing so I'm sealed off from the rest, but I'm not in a dark corner.
Got it.
Once I come in here and close these doors, I'm still nice and light, right?
Oh, it's very bright in there. Yeah, you've got so much better, way better lighting than I currently do. Good work.
So I actually have an exterior window. So I say basement, but I'm above ground. It won't focus on that, but so some nice light. Got the lathe. That's the famous lathe that arrived in my garage before I knew what the world that meant. But lots of different species drying there.
That's so awesome.
Lucky enough, I got a big black walnut tree. There's a lot of English walnut in there. Lot maple. And being in Utah, we don't naturally have any hardwoods. So it's all just trees that people are taking down in their yards. Okay.
So what is your favorite local wood that you like to turn with, if you will?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great question. And when I say Utah doesn't have any hardwoods, that's a true statement. If you look it up, there's a few oak that grow wildly, but they're small. It's like scrub oak stuff. Right?
Okay.
And so the only trees that truly grow in Utah are all softwoods. You've got a huge variety of pine, and then you've got a lot of aspens, quakey type stuff. And so those aren't woods that turn well. They're too soft. Right? And I've learned a lot of it, and sappy. They're horrible. So everything I turn is actually trees that other people planted in their yard, 50 to 100 years ago.
Oh,
and it makes it kind of fun. I'm just salvaging things. And I mean, you saw those bowls behind me. All of those are just trees that, friends or family have called and said, hey, there's a tree down. And I'm that weird guy that shows up and says, hey, can I have that? And people are they're always thrilled to get rid of it, right? They're like, yeah, we didn't know what the world we were going to do with it. And I'm like, perfect, I'm your guy. So turned a wide variety of woods, none of which are truly native to you.
Okay. So I over time, so you've been doing this 3 to 4 years now. So this has got to be like a nice network now of like, oh, a tree's down. I got a guy for you that could actually come and get rid of that for you. He'd be happy to take this away from you.
Yeah, yeah, you'd be surprised how often that happens. As a matter of fact, this winter season, people tend to cut trees down in the fall, in the winter, which is good because they have less moisture content at that point. But I actually had to turn down several. I just had too much. And
Really?
since I'm not running a business, I'm not mass producing
Hmm.
bowls. I mean, what you saw on my ping pong table there will pretty much cover everything I've sold for Christmas, but it'll cover my cost for the year, right? But I turned down several trees. Now, that being said, I usually pass those trees onto my social media network here in Utah
Nice.
and
Good.
send all my local wood turners there. And it's funny, I've had people call and say, holy smoke, you didn't show, but 15 other guys with chainsaws did, and the tree disappeared in 10 minutes. So it's a good
Good.
network. I'm
Good.
really, for all the slack social media takes, and I understand why, all the negativity, my
Hmm.
experience has been incredibly positive.
Yeah,
Super
I
nice
can't.
people.
Yeah, I can't even back that up enough. Like not even just within this job, but beforehand. The reality is like, I understand the hate too that happens online. Like, but if you're looking for people that are trying to share information, they are out there and they are really down to help.
Yeah,
That has been my experience big time. Like, I love that. I mean, it's literally I've built a career off of this. It's not like some like it's literally my job. So
that's
uh
awesome.
yeah, so it's a lot of fun. So I can resonate big time with what you're saying. I'm super curious the lessons that you've learned from not just engaging with your social media, but also the big ones that you had to learn from for yourself when it comes to wood turning specifically, but also like pointers that you would share with people that maybe someone's watching this video or listening to this podcast for the first time and they're thinking about buying a lathe or they're thinking about picking up some tools. What would you tell them, or like what would you wish you would have told yourself when you were first getting into it
Yeah,
3 or 4 years
great,
ago?
great questions. Great questions. And I get asked that question on a regular basis, right? People direct messaging me, or I give out my phone number regularly, and people calling and saying, "Hey, I see you. You've become incredibly successful doing this." I think my biggest advice is be careful how you rate your success, how you judge success, right? If you're trying to get into this because you want to make a career, you want to quit your job and turn bowls and spheres, it's not going to work. And
Hmm.
I don't mean to be, a damper or to be negative, but that's not what this is. It's tough. The guys who turn full time, it's hard. And most
Hmm.
of them have other jobs they have to add to it, right? Being a wood teacher or teach lessons or something. It is not a super profitable industry. You have to come into this because you love it.
Hmm.
And that's, if you can rate your success by your enjoyment doing it, then it's a phenomenal thing to do, right? And the only times that I found myself turning that I haven't enjoyed it is because I have to, right? Somebody's ordered something from me that I didn't necessarily want to make.
Hmm.
And when I get to
Hmm.
those points, I always think, this isn't what I signed up for. This is
Hmm.
not what I'm doing. And I've gotten away from that. I turn things that I enjoy to turn. And then if I'm happy enough with it, I put my brand on it and I offer it for sale. And sometimes it sells,
Hmm.
right? 90% of the time I end up giving them away as wedding gifts or birthday presents. And it's more fun to see people ecstatic with something you made than it is to ship it blindly across the country to somebody who ordered it off your website. So I guess just be careful what your motivations are, and make sure that you've got your goals straight before you jump in, because it's a big learning curve. There's a lot as you go down. I'll tell you what, I have burned a lot of bowls, and
Okay.
it's just because I wasn't happy with them, right? And I don't want to put out something that's subpar. And until I got to a point that I was really pleased with it, man, my wife used to just cringe, but I just keep chucking them into the wood burning stove because it wasn't it, right?
Right.
More and more and more. And I think I'm finally to a point where I at least like what I produce most of the time,
That's awesome.
right?
So the you, the motivation side of this, I could not agree with you more. And I can't tell you the number of people that reach out to Alumilite or send us DMs or in general that are trying to make money from the jump. And it's not a bad motivation. It's not like this can be a really good like side gig, but you are
Yeah.
dead on the money when it comes to if you're going into it from an expectation that it's going to pay for your mortgage, for instance, that you're going to get a lot of resentment real fast because you're hindering the learning curve itself. Like you're going to try and rush things that just take time, and there's no getting around it at all.
Yeah, and you know, and there's different sides to woodworking. If you're gonna go learn how to be a contractor and maybe build, you know, frame homes or frame a deck like I did in college, that's different. There's a good profit margin there, and it's something you can read about and learn. But wood turning is more of an art. This is not something you pick up quickly. You have to learn how to move your body, use those tools, and create those curves, and then how to treat the wood. And several of my initial bowls just cracked. After being done, I put them in the kitchen counter. I was so thrilled. A few days later, they were cracked in half, right? And now I know why. Now I know how to treat it slowly and to let it dry and to actually do this. It's definitely a labor of love and patience, a lot of patience.
Cool. What other, are there any other pointers that you'd give them? Because the reality is that's the kingpin. I think everyone should lesson with any creative endeavor or any endeavor in general. Make sure your motivations are pure. Because it does matter.
Yeah, and I guess at the risk of sounding super negative, I'll throw in, it is wonderful. I freaking love it, right? This is my happy place. This little room I just showed you, this is where I go to just let it all go and have fun. I truly enjoy it. And there's times where, you know, I'll be waist deep in shavings looking at a pile of green turn bowls and think, am I crazy? Right? Am I a nut job? Like, what am I doing?
Right.
And I just remind myself that, I mean, this was fun, right? I just spent a few hours creating something beautiful from what would have otherwise gone to a landfill. And who cares if I never sell it, right? Who cares if it doesn't pay a mortgage, because my motivation's correct, I hope. My goal is to make something nice and either give it away or possibly sell it. But I'm not looking for December's mortgage payment by turning a bowl. It would lose its flavor very quickly.
Couldn't agree more. So, selfish question: when it comes to Alumilite, what's your favorite product to use for hybrid blanks or hybrid bowls or spheres or anything like that? I'm assuming you've used epoxy in the past. I'm assuming that you've used things outside of Alumilite Clear Slow, and and if the answer is not Alumilite, I do want to hear it, because that means we've got more work to do, which is also a good thing. So I do want to know, like, what's your favorite product to use for wood turning?
It's a great question. And to answer it, I have played with other epoxies and other resins, and goodness sakes, that's a whole new learning curve. Like, there is so many options and so many different ways to handle it. And I failed many times, and I'll actually show you some of those. I keep some of them as mementos, but Alumilite Clear Slow was a game changer for me. To be able to accomplish that, right? That clarity and that perfection, that is just unbelievable to me and has been a joy to work with. Now, it's still difficult, right? And some of these have a little bit of moisture in them that threw it off a little bit. So I've watched all your videos and read a lot about the other product you recently released, the deep pore product. And you have to tell me the exact name of it, but that one looks intriguing. I haven't tried that yet.
Well, we're gonna have to fix that. Yeah, I think you're gonna like the amazing deep pore. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, I think it's.
I would really like to try that.
Cool. We'll send that over.
But no, I haven't received that yet.
Okay.
But from Clear Slow has been the winner for me.
Sorry, my delay keeps happening. You keep going.
No, Clear Slow. Clear Slow has been a ton of fun for me. Now, you do have to buy some appropriate tools, right? It most certainly requires a pressure pot, which I know your new deep pore one does not. So I think you've overcome some of those hurdles that initially held people back. But with a pressure pot and with the right prep of the wood blank, I did find that's important as well. It either needs to be stabilized or severely, completely dried, not just room temperature dried. Then it works very, very well. As you can see on some of these, I mean, that's a beautiful clarity in there, right on top of a wood burl. And I did not stabilize that. That was just drying it out completely in my home oven. Sometimes when kids get home from school and cookies are baking. No, it's just Dad's burls cooking in the home oven. So,
Yep. It's we've got an oven in the shop. up here in Michigan, and then every wood turner that we've interacted with, it's always hilarious to see an actual stove. Some people have
Yeah,
like the really small ones, like
yeah,
just the
little
ones that have the
toaster
little
ovens.
dials. Yep. But then some people like have full ovens. They're like, oh yeah, I dry my wood in there. And it like if any other setting, people would be like, why is there an oven in this wood shop?
Right. Nope, I just walk up to the kitchen, right? And my wife is like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Just cooking some wood," you know. And I've gotten to, I don't, you can't really see this. This is one of my favorites on that same topic. That is black walnut shavings
Oh, yeah, I can
in
see some of
there.
the reflection and like where you can
Yeah,
see
it's
through.
kind of hard to pick up here. You can see through it, but
That's
that is
awesome.
black walnut wood shavings in absolute chaos in a perfect sphere. And
Man, that's cool.
I think that one sums me up pretty well. There's a lot of chaos inside of me, right? But we can polish it off into a nice brown package. It works pretty well. But yeah, so as long as you figure out how to work the products, they work well. And it sounds like you've overcome a lot of that with the deep pore product. I'm excited to try that.
Yeah, I think you're gonna like it, and that's what was one of the goals of the Amazing Deep Pour was like, how can we continue to remove barriers for people? Because the Alumilite Clear Slow, obviously, we love that product. We're gonna keep going with that product for people that are comfortable using pressure pots and using urethane resins and understand the process. It's perfect. But that you need a lot of tools. I mean, you need a
Yeah,
pressure pot, you need either stabilizing resin or you got something that dries the wood. You need to understand how to work with the wood. Deep pour, much different. It's an epoxy. We call it a deep pour and turning resin, turning epoxy, because it actually turns very similar to clear slow. Now,
really.
the patient side is where, with every barrier that we remove, there's other obstacles. It does take 7 days to fully cure. So like
Okay.
you actually have to have the patience to like let that happen. Some people you could turn it after 4 to 5 days if they do like a post cure process. But yeah, the goal with that was like you don't need a pressure pot. You don't have to necessarily stabilize your wood. We do recommend like a quick seal coat on the wood because wood is porous. You got to have air will still get out of certain pieces of wood, so you still got to like get it dry. But the pressure pot has been removed, which is like a big.
That's
It's a
nice.
scary tool. I mean, like if you don't know what
It's a
you're doing with it,
bomb. It's a
it's
bomb in my
exactly.
basement, man. I
There
hook
you
that
go.
air pressure up every time, and I'm like, yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
okay. It didn't explode. We're good.
Yep. Oh yeah. I remember the first couple times we used one in the shop, and everyone's like, "We're using the pressure pot." Okay, like please, everything's
Well,
okay.
and then I got a cheap one, from Harbor Freight, right? Known for less expensive tools. And the first time I plugged my air compressor into it, I thought this might be the first tool I really regret purchasing at a lower end,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't
Mm-hmm.
want to buy a low end bomb, but
No.
so far, so good.
Yeah, the reality is they've done a really good job with those pressure pots. There's so
Yeah,
many people using Harbor Freight pressure pots that they've
yeah,
modified themselves. It's good work.
yeah.
Good kudos to all the makers out there. Okay. I always give everybody an opportunity to ask either Alumilite or myself a question because obviously I'm pestering you with a bunch of questions. So teeing you up for that moment. But my final question to you is what are you working on right now that you're extremely excited about, or what are you working on right now that has been an abysmal failure that you're like, man, I can't believe that didn't come through? Because they both have lessons in them and they're both have value. It just is a matter of perspective. So super curious for you which way you would go.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll start with your question. A question for you. I do have a question. So it is common in wood turning. All of my products, all of my bowls that you see drying behind me here, they're twice turned. So they were
Mm-hmm.
rough turned green, and then I set them back there. You said that your epoxy had to cure for 7 days. I'll be okay because most of those bowls right there have to cure for a year. So it takes forever. But some of them crack. After all of that, I'll get big cracks in it. Which product would you recommend I use from the Alumilite line if I was trying to dress those up a little bit? So if I have a bowl that has a good size, maybe a half-inch crack in it where it's literally just split, and
Mm-hmm.
I want to try to save it,
Mm-hmm.
which I can't use clear slow because I can't fill the whole thing and get it in my pressure pot.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Mm-hmm.
Alumilite product would you recommend I try to fill those?
Great question. So depending on the size of the crack, I would either go with our amazing deep pour or our amazing clear cast. So the amazing clear cast is just you could call it our tabletop epoxy.
Okay.
And it is wonderful for that application. And actually, once that's fully cured, it actually turns extremely well too.
Oh,
That we
good.
do have a fair amount of people that use just our amazing clear cast and turn only with that, which I was really encouraged to find out, because comparing it to our clear slow, people were worried about the ribbons and like the natural tendency that happens with the clear slow, that the ribbons everyone loves. You can have that same effect with our amazing clear cast as well. So if you got a 1/2 inch, I think that will absolutely cover it. You're not going to get too much exotherm with that much space. So just the regular amazing clear cast, our
Oh,
regular
good.
epoxy, is
Good.
what I would recommend for sure. So
Good. I'll try that. And then of course we know that with clear cast, I can make that any color or add any powders, anything I
exactly.
want.
Yep, you can
Okay.
modify that up as much as you'd like.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, that's helpful, because I actually have a shelf of bowls that are either headed to the fireplace, or I got to figure out how to save them. So I'm going to
Yep.
try that, and I'll get back to you. We'll let you know how
Yeah,
that
please
goes.
let me know how that goes, because I do want to hear.
That kind of leads into what I'm most excited about. I need to fill some of those. And then recently I just posted, getting a little bit creative. This is solid
Oh,
wood. That is all maple and black walnut. And I just posted a video on how I made that. But it would be entirely possible to remake this completely with clear slow. And I could make a
ooh,
true 8-ball, right? With
yes.
black and white. And I'm kind of excited about that. It was a ridiculous process. Back to my earlier comments that if you really want to sell this and then back into how much you made per hour, you would have been better to get a job at McDonald's, because it took forever.
Yep.
But kind of proud of that. That was a fun little challenge. And then for me, it's going to sound really hokey, but for me, everything I'm excited about, there's something with wood turners and bowls, trying to get that perfect curve, trying to get that bowl where when you run your hands over it, it just flows smoothly and doesn't have, the slightest ridge or joint in it. I'm getting there. I don't know if it'll ever be perfect, but I'm pretty excited about the most recent ones that have gone out.
Oh,
And
that's so good.
maybe as hokey as that sounds, I'm really excited about it, because it took
I don't
years to
think it
get
sounds
there.
hokey at all. I really don't. The cool thing about my job is like I get to see people making stuff and like see the joy that it gives them, and like I couldn't be more thrilled to see for you it might feel hokey, or like to people that don't understand wood turning, sure, like it's like anything, but like
Yeah.
for you it's clearly brings you a lot of happiness and you're motivated to do it because it's like your space, it's where you get to go to create, it's where you get to be express yourself on some level. I It's not hokey. I love it. It really
We're,
gives me goosebumps. Like I love
we're
it.
friends, man. I like you. I've brought other people in here who kind of walked around and thought, like, you can read their thoughts, right? They look
Yep.
around this room and they're like, what is wrong with this guy? I'm like, it's okay.
Yep.
They don't get me.
Yep. It's
Caden,
not for. Yep.
Caden in
I got you.
Michigan, he gets me.
I
We're,
got it.
we're good.
Yeah. Good. Well, cool. Hey, Aaron, I really, really appreciate you taking the time to be on this podcast. Really excited to share some of your work with the world on our Maker Monday. Please keep creating stuff and please keep doing hokey stuff and what's hokey in your mind, because I think the world needs more of that stuff, and keep creating from that good spot. I think it'll continue to pay dividends, at least for yourself, which ultimately that's what really matters. So good job.
Much
Um,
appreciated, my friend. Thank you.
yeah, cool. All right. Hopefully we'll talk soon. And I do want you to send me photos of the bowls that you fixed with the amazing Clearcast. So I want to see them.
Will do. Will
Cool.
do. Thank you, Caden. Appreciate you having me on.